I would love for you to just kind of think about this question. So we're gonna be circling around this for kind of the whole talk. But when I say my brain, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you? So I would love that answer in the chat, just so you could kind of see, so we can kind of see what's going on. The brain is complex. It's also one of our most important organs. As a psychologist, I might say it's, the most important, but other people would say there's other important organs. Debatable. So as we're kind of just getting settled in, I would love to know, when I say my brain, your brain, what's the first thing that comes to mind? We're kind of get that settled. Well, honestly, you'll be up for debate for quite a while, since Aristotle and mind, body, spirit kind of delineated. Now we know there's quite a strong mind body connection, but so on and so forth. That's not necessarily the focus of this talk today. I'm just going to give it another minute or so. I know people are still just kind of getting settled. And again, thank you for being here. I'm loving some of these answers. All the answers, really. I appreciate the you putting it in there. Okay, looks like we are settling in. So I'll kind of give you my little intro as everyone gets settled. And I think everyone can hear me because I'm seeing things in the chat. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today as a speaker as part of Medium Day 2024. My talk is Brain Health and Performance, the Power of Leveling Up. As you come in, I'd love for you to put in the chat your name if that feels comfortable for you, where you're zooming in from, and the answer to the following question you see on the screen. What is the first thing you think of when I say my brain? And we'll give it one more minute and then we're going to go ahead and get really started. These answers are pretty cool in the chat. Yes, Elsa, I understand. Yes, great answers, everyone. No wrong answers, by the way. Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So I'll be back into the look at the chat. Feel free to keep that in there. Just some housekeeping. If you could keep yourself muted just so that there's no kind of feedback or anything for this time, that would be helpful. I would appreciate it. So hi everyone, we're gonna get started. I am Danielle, a behavioral health researcher and doctoral candidate in counseling health psychology. On Instagram, you may know me as In Session with Danielle or your favorite neighborhood psych training. And on Medium, you might know my page talking about Danielle Hope Psych, talking lots about mental health, our brain, and kind of just the ins and outs of being a clinician. And just, really the meaningful and privileged work that I get to do with patients and clients. So, as I have been working on my PhD, my research and clinical work has evaluated cognitive abilities, behavior change, and mental health. Throughout this process, I've been asking myself quite often, what works and what doesn't as we perform? How dependent are we on our brain's health? And no, not necessarily a rhetorical or a satirical question. Really, how dependent are we? Let's break that down. First, what is performance? Performance is the process of carrying out or accomplishing an action or task. Anything from doing the laundry to studying to completing a marathon is an accomplishment, and it's something that we perform. Sometimes it feels easier than others. Some tasks feel easier than others. It just kind of depends on our performance and cognitive abilities. Now, what is brain health? This is the state of brain functioning across multiple domains or areas. Those domains include cognitive, sensory, like our five senses, social emotional, so our environment and the feelings that come up as we interact, and behavioral, the actions that we do. And this is these domains, when kind of functioning at their best, allow a person to realize their full potential across their lifespan. And this is coming from the WHO, World Health Organization. Brain health directly impacts how we memorize, pay attention, problem solve, and make decisions. And as I say those words, some of you might definitely be familiar with. Oh yeah, I memorized that test a long time ago, the answers to that test. Or I can pay attention, or as some of you kind of put in the chat, paying attention is not my strength. Problem solving and making decisions. Sometimes some problems feel very easy to solve. Some decisions feel easy to solve, rather to make. And then other times we're stuck. We're like, I'm just not sure what's going on here. That's all part of what our brain is deciphering. We're taking in information, we're collecting data, we're collecting kind of relevant pieces, and sometimes not so relevant pieces, and trying to put it together in the puzzle, make this answer that we feel best. And it gets complicated because sometimes we feel like an answer is best, but you also feel uncomfortable. That could be maybe it's new, or maybe it's something that you're still not really sure on. But we have peaks and valleys, or strengths and weaknesses, in all of these abilities. As I tell my patients on a weekly basis, we all have strengths and weaknesses. It's just part of being human. And it's really true. Some of these areas just come kind of seamlessly to us. We don't have to think about it. And other times it feels like it's taking a long time, as if you can't even come up with an answer. It happens. It's part of why we're humans and have these big brains. So speaking of these big brains, one of the really neat things about our brains is that we typically have high brain plasticity. Whoa, plasticity. What is that? And no, I'm not calling you plastic. So our neural or brain plasticity is the ability to change our neural networks as we learn and experience. We can literally change the structure of our brain as we take in new information. Wild. So what we're seeing here is, as we kind of age, as we go along our experiences, our life, we're constantly taking in information. It takes about 7 seconds for sensory information to come on in and be deciphered if it's important, brain needs to spend more time on it, or if not. Obviously, there's caveats, but that's about the average. And so as we're taking in information and deciding, yes, that's important for us, the brain is then going to plug it into different areas and decides, is this more about, planning? Is this more about motor function? Is this more about visual function, hearing, so on and so forth? And it's going to place it in the area that it's supposed to. Is this going to be part of our memory? Is this going to be part of our emotion processing? So on and so forth. So with one of the neat things about so as we kind of have our brain structure, and it kind of changes, or really is updated as we get information, the kicker about neuroplasticity, it persists throughout life as we age. Neuroplasticity, the ability for our brain to take in information and be restructured, does not stop. It continues throughout our life. That wives' tale saying that an old dog can learn new tricks is in fact true. We really have the ability. It just kind of depends on our situation, what we're going through, our emotional kind of capacity that will change our ability to kind of do certain things. Which leads us to, well, what is brain health? How do we maintain it? This sounds like a really big deal and something that that I don't necessarily have a handle on or control on. Well, there's certain things that you certainly can do that significantly contribute to maintaining a happy and healthy brain. So how do we maintain our cognitive or brain health? Well, there's some key behavioral health factors that maintain our healthy brain. I'm just moving our slide, our visuals here. So one of them is a balanced diet. So I'm sure if you go on TikTok, social media, the internet, there's a whole host of people, experts and non-experts, kind of telling you things. We're just talking about balanced diets. Some key ingredients can look like having omega-3s in your diet, antioxidants, vitamins like antioxidants and kind of blueberries. Those help our brain kind of maintain its health. They're also helpful for, on a physical level for the rest of our body. Next, we have physical movement or exercise. Again, this one can feel very complicated and specific, but it's really up to you. What is that physical movement? What does that exercise look like? We do know from research that about 25 to 30 minutes of consistent movement throughout the week, it really depends, anywhere 3 to 5 times a day, can really help us. It helps keeps our stress down, and it also helps our brain during that maintain kind of our ability to take on stress and release it. So, physical exercise can be very soothing, but it's also the ability for the brain to be stressed out a bit and then come back together in a controlled way. Because oftentimes our other stressors are ways that we have zero control over. But when we experience stress in a controlled manner, it gives us a foundation to manage it when we're having stress that's outside of our control. Next, we have mental exercises. Don't get scared when I say that. This is anything from chess to crossroads to reading or writing, kind of challenging yourself in that almost school like fashion where you're learning something new. Some people might want to take on learning a new language. The key thing here, though, if you're too stressed about learning something new, you're not necessarily achieving that mental exercise. You want to have some level of enjoyment in it so that your brain is able to kind of recognize, oh, this is fun. I'm being challenged in a good way, not in a way that makes me want to give up. So keep that in mind. Next is regular and consistent sleep. This is so important. And I know it's hard. We have busy lives, we have busy routines, and really kind of getting our sleep routine. Oh, I am seeing, can't see the complete slide. One moment here. Okay. Hopefully you can kind of see the slide now. So going back to sleep. So this is really finding what works for you. We know on average 7 to 8 tends to be pretty good for some people. Some people need more, some people need less. But finding how that feels good when you wake up and kind of feel refreshed when possible, is what we're really looking for when we think about consistent sleep. Stress management. So stress management is important. And I think that's another one that can be kind of complicated, but it's really about finding what works for you. And then we have maintaining social connections. And this is where some of the research that I do currently on dissertation really falls in. It's about quality, not quantity. Do you feel like you have people you can turn to who, when you're not feeling like yourself, you're feeling down, there are people there around for you. That's what we're talking about with social connection, kind of maintaining, whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be weekly, but it's about that feeling of, oh, I know there's people, in this world around me that will be there in my aid and that I can turn to as well. It's reciprocal, making sure that it's a bi-directional type of interaction. So when we feel that we have people we can talk and depend on, just to summarize that point, it aids our health physically, emotionally, and cognitively. So that's what we're looking at there. So going back to that first question of what comes to mind when I say my brain, I'm going to take a quick look at the chat once again and see what people have put on. There were some really interesting things in there. So we're kind of seeing my brain, all my thoughts, nothing filtered. Certainly, especially depending on the part that we're of the information that's coming in. My awareness, thinking faculty, certainly, personal computer, definitely. My thought process, the mechanism by which we process reality. Love that. Cognitive ability, processing, makes me overthink. I understand. It's complicated. Sure is. Powerful tool. The essence of what makes me me. Very beautiful, very poetic. The thinking part, powerhouse. The brain is a muscle. So definitely feel free to kind of go back and see what people are putting there. But it's really interesting. Oh, I'm just seeing I am my own smart app. Very clever, yes. So we're really seeing that this is where a lot of those kind of decisions, both at a physical but a cognitive, molecular level, happening. And it's really just interesting to kind of think about how when we're taking in information, it can happen so quickly, but we're doing things automatically. So what we know about, and then So that's how we're there. So thank you so much for your answers in the chat. And what we know is by maintaining these 6 areas above, we can prevent and treat cognitive decline. We can have a healthy brain. Some of this is in our control and some of it is not. Think about life. Somewhat we have control over certain things and other things, not so much. But we also know by having kind of maintaining these 6 areas, it helps our performance. So that's also kind of something to keep in mind as well. Our cognitive health is directly correlated to how well we can perform. So I've done quite a bit of talking, and now it's time for individual brainstorming, pun intended. Optimizing our performance is, for better and for worse, not going to happen overnight. Remember, there's 6 domains here that we recommend having some type of management on. No, perfection is not possible. It's more about having kind of the ability for you to think about, let's see here. I'm seeing some things in the chat about not being able to see. Hopefully that's a little better. So kind of just thinking about that. Typically, we recommend that you either start with one of the areas that you find pretty easy and kind of having routine around there, or something that's more challenging. It's really up to you. If you're a person that's kind of likes challenges and like is interested in kind of feeling accomplished post that, or if you're a person that kind of needs to build themselves up, that's how you would kind of set an accurate goal of like, yeah, let me start with the hardest one, or no, let me start with the easiest one. So on and so forth. So once you find success with one of the areas, you move on to the next one. It's about management, consistency. So if you feel like you have a handle on nutrition and social engagement, but want to focus on mental stimulation, do that, so on and so forth. So you may have noticed a few seconds ago that I kind of brushed over stress management. That was intentional because we're coming back to it now. Stress management is how you deal with difficulties or adversities in your daily life. And there are many ways to work on managing your stress. Whether you're a teacher, a researcher, a college student, having tools in your toolbox to help you manage are essential. Some people find success with mindfulness and or breathing techniques, being able to be present and in the moment so that when those outside sources are kind of caving in on us, we're able to just focus on the here and now. Others find napping, reading, talking with a friend, repeating a positive affirmation to be helpful. It really depends. And I say this because when I was completing my master's training on mental health support during humanitarian crises at Columbia University, the instructors who were psychologists and psychiatrists told us that the first thing we lose during a crisis is our mind. While this is certainly a simplification of the situation, what it's telling us is that during stress, our brain enters flight, fight, freeze mode at a molecular and hormonal level and a cognitive level. We are in survival mode, and which limits our ability to problem solve and make decisions. So how do we manage this? By having a handy dandy note of what we are supposed to do in this exact moment. So you'll see here this kind of note put up, and this is where we're getting to our activity. I also do have it in the chat, I believe, or if you click on more, let me see here. I put it in resources. If you can see on your Zoom, if you click resources, you'll see 2 links, the PDF version and the PowerPoint version where you can type. So you will see a template for your wellness notes. For our activity, we're going to complete this. You will not have to share at all, but I highly recommend that now, while you are presumably in a calm a space and have the time for it, jot down a few things in each box and store this in a place that you can easily see. You can also maybe take a screenshot of this. I'm going to put it back in the chat, so just give me a second. I recommend that you have this someplace that's easily seen, whether that's your desk, the fridge, your car, your phone, so that the next time you feel the stress come on, you pull this note out. Remember, in a crisis, our mind might go blank. Our mind is probably going to go blank. Maybe not for the whole time, but initially. And through repetition, you'll likely store this information in your long term and won't necessarily need this handout or this sticky note each time. But it really takes practice. Practice is really one of our brain's best friends. So let's take a look. I've chosen areas that really come up quite often in our daily experiences. Feeling frustrated rather, feeling sad, feeling restless, angry, uncertain. When we know there's things that keep us calm, bring us back to feeling a bit more centered. This can be helpful because we have the ability then to do this in the moment and re-regulate. We want to go from flight, fight, freeze to the ability to just have an awareness of what's going on. We want to take a deep breath and have the ability to just assess, not necessarily in a frantic manner. And you may have overlapping kind of activities or coping skills who are frustrated and sad, so on and so forth. That's okay. You want to find something that works for you. So let's see here if I go into, let me see. I'm going to put this back in just for anyone who can't get to the resources at the moment. So it's loading. So it's going back in there. Okay, it says it was sent on my end. So yeah, let's take a few minutes here. I know we're coming up close to time. And just, there's no right or wrong answer. As long as it's helpful and kind of healthy for you to do. Thank you for letting me know that it's in there. And you can have overlapping things. And as you're doing this, also notice like what's an area that's actually challenging that you draw a blank on. That might be an area that you have to come back to. I don't know what I do when I feel sad, for example. That's okay that you don't know that right now, but it's certainly an area that you're going to want to come back to and have an option for because emotions are natural. They're supposed to come up. In fact, if they don't come up, that might be, something else to kind of explore, with your licensed mental health provider or your primary care provider, so on and so forth. We are supposed to naturally have the spectrum of emotions, and being able to manage them is just helps us make us feel more productive and perform better, more optimally. I'm going to go in right now too and see if we have. Feel free to put questions because we're coming up on time as you're kind of working on this activity. I do see one. How does the brain control my mind, or it follows and processes what minds think? Great question. So kind of what happens is our brain is taking in information all the time. You are taking in information as you listen to me and visually if you're looking at my slides. So the brain is deciphering, am I going to pay attention to this or not? And then how important is this information? Well, that can be kind of a controversial question. I know we get into arguments with partners, spouses, friends, so on and so forth. Oh, I'm going to stop paying attention. That's not necessarily what we're talking about right now. The brain is just deciding, is something going on here that I need to be more attuned to it. And then kind of a few things happen. Either A, the brain is going to pull from similar experiences and react that way. Now, if this is a new experience, the brain is then going to probably really go back into that performance piece of like, okay, well, what's similar? How can I respond in what I deem is appropriate response? And then adjust as we go on. That's why learning can kind of be so hard or challenging at times because it's new. And we have to give ourselves the ability to experience that newness and then react. That's why, when we make mistakes, we tend to learn from it, or hopefully learn from it, and be better able to respond moving forward. So that's how that kind of works. So the resources in the chat, but we're coming up on time and I want to be respectful of other speakers too. So I just want to let you know where you can find me. If you're kind of interested in more information about this, so on and so forth. And just so you know, this is educational purposes. I can't give out clinical information, so on and so forth, like individual clinical information, but I'm always here to talk about kind of like the general process of things. Oh yeah, because I'm seeing like concussion recovery, that's super kind of dependent on your like experience and what's happening. Usually time is kind of helpful for that, but there's certain kind of key clinical things that we tend to see, excuse me. But time and rest really helps us with concussions. Does the brain think about matter that really exists in our subconscious state? Interesting. So subconscious is kind of a word that we see in the literature. What we know about that is whether you are attuned, you are aware of what's going on. So the subconscious is kind of like me taking in information, like for example, if I were to stop right now and hear the birds, The birds have been chirping, rather. They have been chirping this whole time, but I wasn't attuned to it. My brain knew there was something there, but it wasn't until I turned my attention to it that I was like, oh, there's birds kind of happening. So that's like kind of what the subconscious is. There's other times too where we're thinking about kind of how our information or memory is stored, where we're kind of hit with a sensory experience that might bring something up. That's the brain kind of working in its magnificent and mysterious ways, where it's pulling from our experience. Sometimes, unfortunately, there's kind of negative outcomes to that as well. We're talking about trauma, so on and so forth. But there's also kind of ways where we're like, oh, I didn't remember that, and now I do. So that's how that kind of works. Let's see. I've seen this framework promoted as a way to prevent or at least delay Alzheimer's as a disease processing. Yes. So cognitive health, maintaining those 6 domains is certainly helpful to the degree that we can control it in reducing cognitive decline. So as we know, there isn't at this moment no cure for dementia, so on and so forth, but maintaining a healthy brain is protective of cognitive decline. Let's see here. In a nutshell, due to neuroplasticity, we can always improve our brain health, including memory. Brilliant. I love that. Yeah. There is kind of room for improvement. Now, of course, there's individual characteristics. There is some things at the genetic level, at the molecular level. Cardiovascular health, for example, so thinking about our physical exercise, has an influence on how well our brain is doing as we age. But certainly, as we continue to kind of grow, if we maintain these areas to the best of our ability, and making sure we're continuing to be socially engaged, we certainly have the ability, barring any type of disease, so on and so forth, that may be present, the ability to continue with our neuroplasticity. We know even for individuals with dementia, there's degrees of learning that happens. It depends on the stage of the dementia that can happen. But things like where we have the ability for our patients with dementia to tell stories, there's memories there that haven't been affected by the disease yet, so on and so forth. Let's see, is it possible to put the handout in the chat? Yes, let me see if I can redo it. Our brain has over 500 years of genetic memory. We are so powerful. Love that. Certainly. Okay, yeah, I'm going to try and put the resource in there one more time. And I know we're close to time. I want to thank you all so much for being here, for your energy, for your questions and your time. I love talking about this. This is a topic near and dear to my heart. And I just appreciate you all being here. This is where you can find me on Medium, where I kind of have a bit more lengthy information that I put on there. And then my Instagram, where you'll see some more day-to-day things, but also lots of mental health and brain health. I appreciate you all so much for being here. Thank you. I hope you have a great rest of Medium Day and a great rest of your Saturday. Thank you, everyone.